Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. Sorry for being a minute late. Little technical difficulties here. Never want to start late on a live session, but um, we should get through it. My mic keeps unplugging for some fun reason, but it looks like we're good to go. So, as always, thank you so much for being here. As we all know, 2023 has been a really slow hiring year, but I appreciate it when everybody shows up. And we've had really good engagement over the last month or so, which isn't really surprising because this typically tends to be the time of year where we see a little bit of an uptick in hiring. I can see it in terms of my business. So everything trends from YouTube views to client engagement, et cetera. So definitely seeing an uptick. So that's a positive just piece of data to share is that yes, there appears to be a little bit more hiring. And these are the classic hiring months of the year. And we probably talked a little bit about this last week. I'm pretty sure we did. It's the use it or lose it. So hiring managers typically fiscal year and calendar year are going to be the same. So a lot of hiring managers, it's just like, hey, if you don't use your headcount, you may not get it next year. And that's a really important data point for candidates to know because hiring managers at some companies are going to have some pressure to hire, which is really good for anybody who's interviewing. So just something to keep in mind. So I want to just spend a minute talking about yesterday's video and then we'll dive in. As I'm kind of chatting through my intro, please let me know where you're visiting from. Obviously, any and all comments, questions are absolutely welcome with a positive tone, please. But let's bring everything to the table. And then when we have downtime, and as I've noted multiple times, 2023 has been really slow for these lives with a good uptick over the last month. We'll talk about some of the best interview strategies in our downtime. But start coming in, leave those comments. Let me know that you can hear me, see me. So let's spend just a moment talking about yesterday's video. I could probably dive into any of those concepts that I focused in on yesterday, but they were all misconceptions about Google's hiring process. Look, we all know that I am a communications coach and an interview and negotiation coach, but a lot of my clients and a lot of people here are looking to get into Google and big tech. But there are so many misconceptions about Google and what happens behind the scenes, and obviously that's from an interview strategy and negotiation strategy. So um, it's just important to know those misconceptions because those misconceptions can just help you navigate the process and maybe navigate the process with less stress and anxiety. So just a couple things to keep in mind. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one interview, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and we also have an interview mastery course. I am going to make a decision to push forward with the dev of my AI practice interview tool this week. So each week in these lives and in the community and in the Slack group, if you've never joined our Slack group, go to practiceinterviews.com. It's totally free. We have 4,000 members in there sharing information with each other. I'm going to start to uncover some items about the AI tool. And so we're going to start with a lean beta and start getting people to sign up and giving the tool away for free. And then okay, please let me know if you can hear me. So the reality is that this is part of going live. Can you hear me now? We're here. Okay. So hey, we're going live, and my mic, the connection is starting to get loose, and so sorry about that. Thanks so much for the patience. Um, so I was just mentioning the AI tool. Basically, we're going to get a sign up. We're going to get things going. This will definitely be out this year, and I'm just really excited about it. I don't want to spend too much time because, of course, we got to get into the questions. That's what I'm here to do. But I know that this tool is going to be best in market. I'm so confident about it. And, you see these live sessions where people are just plugging and pitching and they don't really get down to business too quickly. And so I want to do that. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I do new original content every Monday, lives every Tuesday. And if I'm not going to go live or produce original content, I'll send out a message in the YouTube community. Thanks so much for being here. Let's dive in. Hey, Liz, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing the site that you put together. Looks really, really cool. I mean, the design is just unbelievable, as I would expect. So it looks great. Let me know if you have any questions about what I saw. Hey, Joseph, thanks for coming from Toronto. Awesome. LA, my northern neighbor. Okay. Hey, Jeff, 2 questions about GCP. What's typically covered in the very first call with the recruiter, and do they get into salary expectations up front? Okay, both great questions. What's covered with the recruiter really is recruiter dependent. It usually is, it's really light and fluffy typically. Typically, you're getting into that conversation because they already see you as a fit. So I look for more of the soft skills, like show up on time, be gracious and kind, communicate well, and then what they're likely going to tell you is that you don't need to know GCP. I strongly do not like that feedback because your competition does. Do you need to be an expert? Absolutely not. But should you be going to the GCP testimonials page? Absolutely. Should you understand what it looks like from a data, networking, compute, storage perspective? What are the nuances within GCP in those areas? Yeah, like high level, but you should learn GCP. Now, you don't have to do that before the recruiter call, but I would strongly recommend that before the interviews. I was going to say, if I was a Google recruiter, I was. So when I was a Google recruiter, I would absolutely press you on comp every single time in the first conversation, and I'd be relatively tough, meaning I'd say, hey, what are your comp expectations? And if you said, I don't know, or I'd like to think about it, I'd say, yeah, but if you did know, what would they be? Just give me a range. And I would use a couple little tactics to push. And I almost always got those comp expectations up front. And I use that, I don't want to say I use that to my advantage later on, but it was just a data point for me to have. I went all out for every single candidate that got an offer at Google. I tried to max out every offer. And that's what most of the recruiters are going to do. But my strong piece of advice, deflect. I really don't want to share comp expectations now. If they push, say, I haven't had an opportunity to meet with the team, learn more about the role. We obviously don't have level confirmed. Push, 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 push. You do not talk about compensation until you are approved to move forward to the offer stage, whether that's through HC, through executive review, just through the general process. If you don't go to HC, do not share comp until they want to hire you. Why? Because when they want to hire you, you're at a huge advantage to negotiate. So just some things to keep in mind. Great questions. Okay. Second question on GCP. What's a good anchor for an L7 delivery executive, Austin? What's the approximate breakdown of cash, comp, and equity? Okay, so wow. Okay, L7 delivery executive. So L7 delivery executive. It's probably going to have some form of a sales component. So I would imagine that's, if we're talking GCP, most of the sales roles are 42.86%. I don't think the base is going to be super high. That might cap around the high 1s or 2. It's not going to be crazy in Austin, even for an L7 because of the high bonus target. I mean, all in as an L7 in any market, I'm really looking to get up to $500,000. And again, the breakdown of that could be 200K, 42.86% bonus, and then make up the difference on equity, just keeping in mind that equity is 38, 32, 20, 10 in terms of how it pays out over 4 years. But if you're looking to make 500K, you may want to anchor. I would probably be anchoring in the high 6s. Just to kind of set that anchor pretty high. I don't know if I would go into the 7s, but high 6s. But if you want to go into the 7s, I'm sure it's fine. I hope that helps. Argentina. Okay. This is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Buenos Aires, maybe my favorite city in the world. If you've never been, And especially if you're in the US, which I don't think like a ton of people in the US ever make it down there because it is a long flight to go that far south. But Buenos Aires is hands down maybe the best city in the world, in my opinion. So thanks for being here. I don't know where you're from in Argentina, but just wanted to give a little plug for BA. Hey, Jeff from Romania. Okay, amazing. Right now, I passed the first phone interview for Google Suite. Thank you for the videos. They were really helpful. Wish you luck. Okay, so awesome. So now that you've passed the first interview, you know what to do. Double down. Work harder. When we get these opportunities in life, we need to go all out, right? And that's just my recommendation. So if you've passed that first interview, you should start prepping twice as hard. Not say, okay, well, I'm doing good, like I feel good about it. Just continue to really work on your coding skills, data structures, algorithms, depending on level, system design. If you're going for L5 or above, you're going to get system design. And then remember, every SWE is going to have the GNL interview. So you really got to be able to talk about your soft skills and decision making. Okay, so the GNL interview is super focused in on decision making. So how would we change decisions in the past? How have we made decisions in the past? And then how would we do it with X scenario? Okay, and then obviously decision making with a lens for inclusivity is also going to be absolutely critical. Okay, I'm gonna skip over all the ones from when I lost the audio, which has happened a lot lately. So I think I need a new cord. I think that's the solution here, I guess. Okay. Sorry, it's freezing in my office, so getting a little snotty. What is the Slack community Jeff was mentioning? Okay, so practiceinterviews.com. Go to the free resources. You can join our Slack community. So the Slack community is free. So that's the way to go about it. Should be pretty straightforward. Let me know if you have any challenges with the Slack link, but I did get that Slack link updated, so nobody should have any challenges for a little bit of time. Slack always does this funky thing with their invites that I just simply can't figure out. So, but it should be working fine. Thanks, Jeff. Coming from Taiwan, we got a really fun from Romania to Argentina to Taiwan. Watched so many of your videos, and you got an offer from Google this year. Amazing, Kevin. Really appreciate your tips and guidance. It helps me to land my dream job. Thanks again. Thank you so much for the positive feedback. I always appreciate when people come back in and tell us the success story. And the biggest reason why is sometimes it can feel overwhelming. Right. And so when anybody comes in and says they've done it, really, it's a credit to you. It was a small part of your journey. Like, you did all the work, you put in all the time and effort, but the showing people what's possible is really awesome. It's kind of cool. I have a pretty good audience on YouTube, according to analytics in Taiwan. I've only had maybe a handful of clients over the 5 years I've been running my business, but I get some views there. So it's good validation. Thank you so much, and I hope everything's going great. Hey, nice to see you. Okay. When negotiating an offer with a Google recruiter, do we have to show them our current total comp? I recall an Amazon recruiter once asked me for pay slips and total comp when we were hashing out my offer. It depends. So you can come back and let me know. In the US, no, and not only no, but they actually can't ask you in the US anymore for your current earnings, which I don't really agree with, honestly. If it helps you, it should be able to help you. These companies do not take into account current earnings, but they take into account competing offers, which is totally insane. Like, that does not make any sense, but it was a court case in Massachusetts in the US that said that companies couldn't consider current comp. And I think that was to remove bias for those that were underpaid, but then it also unintentionally hurt those who were making good comp. So it's kind of tricky. I really don't like that, but I don't feel like we should have offers and those have validity, but where we're working and actually earning comp has no validity. It's really pretty insane. I did the on-site interview with G Thursday. Went really well and followed CFAS method for hypothetical, but still stumbled on a couple of questions, but waiting for feedback now. Okay, Max. Being perfect in the interviews, like let's just clear that one right out. Like nobody's going to be perfect. We are all going to have moments where we stumble or fumble through things. It's just it's not intended to be perfect. So that's the really good news. So now we're sitting at last Thursday. So when you hit Wednesday, if you haven't heard back by like end of day tomorrow, I would just give your recruiter a quick ping, just checking in. Thanks so much. Just something really simple. Okay, so the Slack link is not working. Oh, Slack. All right. I'm so confused because it works for some people and it doesn't work for other people, and it's just become so frustrating, and you actually can't get anybody from Slack on the phone. They won't call you. So I've just had a running support ticket where I just asked them to speak to somebody because we could solve it in 1 minute if we just spoke and looked at it together. Let me see what I can do, but email me at jeff@practiceinterviews.com and I'll manually add you today, okay, after the live session. Just jeff@practiceinterviews.com and I'll send you a link. Same for anybody else. If you have a challenge with the Slack link, just let me know and I can manually add you. I'm just excited to see you live this week. I want to follow up on networking piece last week. Do you have any recommended resources for me to look through daily? No. So here's what I recommend. My strong recommendation is that, and then let's just go here. I think it would be great to get materials to start off my networking effort. So I can't, and there's a very specific reason why. There are endless materials. So the materials you are going to look up and utilize in your networking strategy are not only relevant to you, but your intended audience. And I can't assume any of those items. So here's what you do. You go into a Google search. Let's give a proposed scenario. Hiring manager Sue, no shock that my fake hiring manager, imaginary hiring manager is Sue. You come across Sue on LinkedIn. And let's say Sue appears to be a manager of program managers, maybe focused in ML and AI. Let's just put it out there, right? Really generic. Well, I would go to a Google search, I'd click on the tools section, and I'd pull up an article or video that had happened in the last day or week, something that's very, very relevant and recent. And what do we know, especially about AI? Relevancy is changing on a daily basis. You share that specific article with Sue and say, hey, Sue, I came across this really cool article on AI, thought it would interest you, and you share it. But there will never be a bank of materials, just saying it out loud, right? There's never going to be a bank of materials. You need to do the work that's individual to the person you're trying to network with. That's why we're not doing 100 reach outs and networking a day. We're doing strategic reach outs to 5 to 10 people a day. And that can take a little bit of time to find the right article, etc. But that's my strong recommendation. Find the relevancy is going to be key. And then here's the good news. You track it in a spreadsheet. And just because you reach out to Sue with that strategy doesn't mean when you find Bob on Thursday or Jane on Friday that you don't share the same content with them as well. That's why I like to track content, who I share it with, etc. Because it just, again, the tracking when you're doing networking, yeah, it's a little tedious, but it will be super beneficial and it will be something that you can come back to for a really long time. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions. Thank you for the super feedback. I feel urgency in applying to a dream role at G. We have 2 questions. The role is mid-level, only 2 to 5 years, and I start my CV with 20 years of experience. So instantly, when we see that, we are trying to align. Remember, we're always trying to align our resume to the role we're applying to, right? So I'm not saying I dislike it. I think a summary bullet could be X number of years of experience doing Y, but if it only requires 2 to 5 years of experience, I would leave that piece off your resume. Also, is that the right fit? You're feeling the urgency to apply, and I understand that. But are you going to be happy in a role that needs 2 to 5 years of experience? Are they actually going to consider you for a role that requires 2 to 5 years of experience with 20 years of experience? Couple of hurdles there, and then of course, and I know we've talked a lot about this, but if you can get referred over applying, that will be a little bit better case study, a little bit better use case for you to actually move forward. But I'm not going to stop you, right? I can't stop you, but I don't want to stop people from applying. It's not my favorite strategy, as I'm sure you know. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the great content. The recruiter has been asking me many times about my compensation expectations since the first screening, after the first interview, and after the final round. Okay, I've already shared my expected number. I have not gotten an offer yet, but if I get one, can I still negotiate if what they offer already reaches my expectations? Great question. Let's all pause here. This is really, really important. There's no reason why you cannot reset expectations. If the recruiter comes back and it's like, what the hell? Like, these are the expectations you gave me. You could say, well, I really didn't want to give you my compensation expectations until we went through the entire process. I didn't have an opportunity to meet the team, understand their roles, responsibilities, etc. And now that I have a better understanding of those items, I've needed to readjust my compensation expectations. I know it's not great, but my new expectations are. And so we can always get around it. And remember, this is a recruiter who's doing something smart, which is they should constantly push to get that information from you. But you can always push back, right? And remember, there's no challenge with going above those expectations. The recruiter should be your partner and advocate. They are not incentivized to hold back any money. And so, my famous story is sometimes comp would say, hey, we can go up to a 20K sign-on, but start with 10K. So what would I say to my candidate? I'd say, I got you a 20K sign-on. Comp told me to only go to 10. 20 is the cap. I'm telling you right now, I went 10K above. They said that this was the max range. Always just went full out for my candidates because I was not incentivized to hold back money, and I wanted to make my candidates happy. And it was a relationship. At that point in the process, you have a relationship with that person. So like you care about them and you want to do good things for them. And that's what most recruiters should do. Most. I can't speak for all recruiters, but most should do that. Hey, Jeff, how are you? I'm doing good. How are you? I'm enjoying my Royal Canon. I don't know. Royal Canon now that I got thanks to all your great videos. Okay. I'm not sure what that first part is, but what is the best strategy to climb job levels? If you want to climb job levels at any company, there's really a few things that you can do to do that. First of all, I think that any company where you have one-to-ones with your hiring manager, you need to, or my recommendation would be that you always get back to the quarterly, biannual, or annual goals. We always need to be driving towards that Northern Star or whatever we want to call it, right? So we're always trying to go into those one-to-ones and saying, here's what I'm working on to achieve these goals. That's one. Secondarily, as you want to jump levels, especially if you've been in any company at any time, you want to set that strategy with your manager, with your lead to say, what do I need to achieve over the next 3 to 6 months to move up a level, to get promoted, so that you can create a specific roadmap that says, hey, look, if I achieve these items, you're telling me that there's a strong likelihood that I would get promoted. Third, collaboration. The more you collaborate across teams, get your name out there, people know about you, think that you're great, that just validates promotion, because sometimes there's promotion committees, sometimes word of mouth really helps. So just make sure you're making strong collaborative efforts. And that can even be just taking the time to learn more about a team through an in-person lunch, virtual lunch, offering to give another team, collaborative team, something. I used to offer my candidate experience training to other teams. So when it came to the promo process at Google, it's like Jeff went above and beyond to like train my entire team to help us and didn't ask for anything in return. And so my name was so well known that when I went out for promo, I mean, it was a no-brainer. Everybody knew who I was and knew the impact I was having. Okay, Liz, I think we lost your. Okay, maybe these came late sometimes. Obviously, when everybody throws in comments at the same time. So let's just go back. So we're looking at your 2 to 5 years of experience with 20 years of experience. So should I reduce the number of years experience or leave it off? How would you handle this? I know you want me to apply through a network, but I'm worried the job will close. So should I apply through the site and ask for a referral, or go straight for the referral? Go straight for the referral. Connecting with the right recruiter on LinkedIn is just, I mean, like, good luck, and good luck actually getting them to respond. Go right through your referrer. Do that now. Hop off the live and go get in contact with your referrer, or stay on the live and contact them at the same time. But yes, in terms of reducing years of experience, you can reduce early years. And again, I think I've been pretty straightforward. Like, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, my experience starts in 2006. I actually graduated college in 1999, which still blows my mind. But my experience starts in 2006, and for a while I had it starting in 2009. I looked really young for a really long time before all the grades came in, and I could really get away with probably being about 10 years younger from appearance wise. And so I really utilize that. And I do recommend the earlier jobs, like, we can scrape them out if they're not relevant, or we just are trying to make ourselves younger. Ageism is a real thing. And anybody who tells you it's not, they're just not being straightforward with you or honest with you. And it's not to be negative, right? It's just to let you know that ageism is a real thing, right? There's bias across the board. And so there's an inability to really ask about dates, especially in the US, so we can make ourselves actually look younger. Hi, Jeff. I have a problem when I speak in an interview. I can't speak freely, and I find it hard to introduce my qualifications. What can you recommend that I do? So there's 2 specific techniques when we tend to get anxious in a setting that is important to us, right? So number 1 is your breath. Our breath can really slow everything down and teach us so much. So I know this would be really weird, but if everybody who's here wants to do it, just take 1 deep breath. Just 1 long exhale, and you can notice the change in my tone, how much easier I sound, how much more relaxed I sound. That's 1 deep breath. So of course, it doesn't have to look and have that same visual. You can just do it and take a deep breath and not really show like the exaggerated body language. Taking deep breaths will make you better. Also, you have to practice with other human beings. The more you do it, the more you do anything, things just get easier, right? And so I think this is like 130 lives I've done. For the first lives this smooth, no. I've learned to just be more myself, get really confident with answering questions, really not worry too much about it. But if you went back and watched the initial lives, probably wouldn't see quite the confidence, the ease, etc., because it was new and I was trying to adapt and adjust and get used to everything. Now all the hiccups, the things that happen, like the mic getting unplugged, just roll with it, right? But that's going to come with practice. So your breath and practice are going to be the 2 most critical items in my opinion. I'm curious why the base pay for an ABP L4 versus an EBP L5 in Seattle. Okay, I'm looking for an admin role in Seattle. They decided they need an ABP L4. Base pay, ABP L4 Seattle. I don't know. It's going to be probably under 150. Something like that. I'm just trying to think. maybe like 130 to 140 on base pay, maybe leaning more towards 130, and have that 15% bonus target. I mean, it should definitely L4 ABP, like all in total comp, you should be at 200, in Seattle, something like that. So it should be pretty good. And of course, that's what you want to come in at. Maybe you're anchoring in the high twos, something like that. We're at the 30s. I'm going to take 30 seconds to prompt on my services, and then we'll get right back to questions. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one interview and one-on-one negotiation coaching, L7 interview mastery course. I am coming out with an AI practice interview tool this year. I'm going to be giving it away for free. Do the beta, get the feedback, and then there's going to be a paid version. It'll be lower hanging fruit, more accessible to more people. This is going to be the new business, so I'm really excited about it. Lots of great opportunities for people to utilize it for free, and I'll continue to tell people more as I know more. Free resources, tons of free resources. Join our Slack community. I go live 10 a.m. Pacific every Tuesday and new original content every Monday. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button, and if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Okay, let's get back to it. Hey Jeff, I recently interviewed for a Google PGM role in India. Although I did not clear the final rounds, the feedback was that I'm not suitable for L5, but I thought the interviews went really well. Anyways, your videos are helpful. Thank you for that. Hope to land an offer with Google soon. Yeah, so suitability that's a challenge, right? Suitability is, there's some ambiguity there. It does not necessarily mean that you go through another slate of interviews and you are not targeted for L5. Okay, so keep shooting for L5 if you think that's the right level, and you're not going to always get a ton of feedback, but keep trying. And obviously, if they put you in the interview process, they saw enough good items in your resume and they like you. So a strong recommendation is keep trying. If you can build a relationship with that recruiter, that would be great as well. Okay, so getting back to this, if you qualify, so the EBP is Executive Business Partner, L5. So my options from the recruiter are pass on this ABP role in hopes of an EBP opportunity arises, or accept the down level. I know L4 is hourly and L5 is salary. I haven't seen hourly, but if they have identified a team, I would say roll with it. ABPs to get in the door, and anybody who's been an ABP or gone through the process, join the Slack community, reach out to Tina. I mean, she was like our rock star ABP. It took her a year in the team match phase, and that was before the freeze when there were a lot more jobs. It just takes a long time. So if you're just trying to get in the door, I say try and get in the door. I wasn't aware that it was an hourly rate, but I still think if you work it out to an hourly rate, it should fall in that 130 to 140 category. So like 65 to 70 an hour would be my guess. But you're still going to get a bonus and equity. I'm just not really familiar with them paying on an hourly basis for a full-time employee unless it was a contract role. That's pretty uncommon. I haven't really seen that. And I actually am like reflecting back to ABPs that I've worked in the negotiation strategy. And I think I've had L4 ABPs in negotiation. And again, the hourly thing is a little confusing. So unless it's a TVC role, that doesn't sound right, but I don't know. I mean, obviously I want to trust your recruiter, but maybe you can tell me a little more. Hey Jeff, thanks for your content. You're in the middle of the loop interviews. Normally my recruiter gave me feedback inside of a week. This last round, she said she needed 2 weeks. Is there a reason for this? Probably, but it's hard to know. Sometimes interviewers, there's a couple things that happen. Interviewers, they don't get their feedback in time, and then they go on vacation, or they're just lagging. There could also be maybe they have the feedback, but your recruiter's not sharing because they have a couple of other people in process. That's less likely. Sometimes it takes a long time. And remember, it's so much of this is the recruiter taking ownership to push on the interviewers and manager when they don't have feedback in. And that's what I would do. And interviewers really did not like me. But it wasn't my fault that they weren't doing their job, right? And so it's so important that recruiters are holding interviewers accountable for feedback, and that if they're not getting that feedback in a timely manner, that they're pushing it up the management chain. And I think some people know my story. I pushed this all the way up to the VP level at Google because interviewers within my whole scope and all the roles just weren't doing it, and I really let them have it. And it turned out really good. I was able to reduce interview feedback time by like a couple days. Now, I didn't do it. The VP's push was what really did it. I didn't have any power as a recruiter, but I really highlighted it. And I think that's what I'd like to see recruiters doing at all organizations. Hey, Corey, you've seen some very cool tools recently that give a candidate a portal to track their stage and progress in the interview process. Have you seen these types of tools? Yes. What the heck is the name of the one? So a former Googler started one, and I'm just totally blanking on it. It will come to me. It will be an epiphany. But he's a former Googler. He created a candidate experience add-on to one of the ATS, to like a good applicant tracking system. And we're going to see more and more of this. And Corey, as we've talked about quite a bit, right? Like, these tools will start to automate recruiters out. And that should be happening now. I think there'll be a little bit of a lag for people to catch on. But once these tools allow candidates to navigate through the entire process, it'll be more and more automation. And again, that's where we'll see recruiters start to slip off. It's just, when you can't think of something and it's just in your brain, but you can't think of it. I just can't think of the name of this tool, and it's something really simple. If I think of it, I'll let you know. What's a good anchor for an L6 strategy lead in LA? Strategy lead, it would depend on whether it was internal or external facing. Most strategy roles are internal. Well, that may not be a true statement, but I mean, L6 strategy role, non-technical, you're definitely trying to get into, LA is such an expensive market. I mean, I'd be trying to get into the mid to high fours. So you're anchoring in the high fives, low sixes, something like that. We discussed about my HM interview L4, L3 decision last week with GCP. Okay. Now I have one more interview with another HM and recruiter. Said it's a GNL. Is this something common? Any tips? Yeah, you got to crush that interview. I mean, and that's just to kind of like present the reality. It's when you get an additional interview, if they're on the L3, L4 line, to move you up to L4, you got to get a higher result. It's really good news. Remember that G and L is all decision making. Okay, so how you've made decisions in the past and how you would handle decision making in given said scenarios. Okay, so just think about even like decision making, like go-to clarifying questions, items that you always utilize in decision making in your framework. You can throw that into Chat GPT and ask it about decision making to help start framing your answers. And then, of course, your great behavioral answers around decisions. A decision that you would change, a decision that was incredibly inclusive, a decision around internal empathy, customer empathy, etc. Those are some areas that I want you to focus on. And you're welcome. In preparation for my on-site at G, I asked Chat GPT to generate possible interview questions based on the job description and got a fantastic list of questions, which I used to train. You will never run out of questions if you use Chat GPT. And it is Max's simple formula. Throw the job description into Chat GPT and say, please provide me 20 hypothetical job interview questions and 20 behavioral job interview questions. Even GPT-4 gets a little bit confused on the hypothetical side sometimes, but I find that it gives better hypothetical questions when we ask for hypothetical and behavioral. But give a number, for some reason, that's a little tip and trick. Then you can also throw the job description and your resume into GPT and say, hey, Um, I want you to look at the job description, look at my resume, and create potential behavioral questions that might be coupled between the two. I mean, you can just get super, super creative, but we will never run out of questions. Even in my free resources, I have question banks. They're not as relevant anymore because of Chat GPT. How much time is expected to get an update after on-site and googliness? Is ghosting rejection? Uh, no, no. So ghosting is not rejection. Just continue to follow up with your recruiter. If you don't hear back for 4 weeks, once we start getting past 4 weeks, I want you to follow up and use the other resource, which is they have a resource for follow up if your recruiter doesn't get back to you. My brain cannot connect to this email address. So if you want to utilize that email address, it's the first comment in the last live YouTube video. So go to that first comment in the last live YouTube video, and that is the string. It's something like Google-candidate-interview, something like that. And usually if you use that email address, you'll hear back in 24 hours. That's if it's been 4+ weeks, use that email. And again, go into last week's live, it's the first comment. Thank you so much for the recommendation on networking material. Now I got that it's supposed to be more customized to individuals I'm aiming for. Awesome, awesome, cool. Yeah, and it's not to be like, hey, I can't do it for you. It's just, we just want to make it so specific to that audience, because just giving generic stuff, right? Like, it's not going to provide value for them. Let's give them something that is really valuable to their role, to their industry, and relevancy, right? Just like the pace of everything. When I do like LinkedIn posts and I share something, I'm never sharing anything that's more than a week old, just because everything changes at such laser speed these days. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we're always looking for new stuff. Hey, Jeff, had a bunch of items in the chat, but they have been deleted when your mic went out. Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. I don't know. StreamYard does some funky things. Thank you for your video yesterday about interview negotiations. Okay, cool. Do you think it would be worth asking my Google sourcer if she'd be willing to organize a couple of casual coffee style chats with HMs who she has a good relationship? They obviously couldn't be for the specific UXW roles, and I know everyone is busy, but I thought this could help my networking strategy with HMs and perhaps inspire them to create a role for me that's a fit. Is that a crazy idea, or do you think it has merit? If a role doesn't exist, my experience, passion, and positivity inspire a change that wouldn't otherwise be there. My goal in life is not to tell anybody what's possible and what's not possible. I think the likelihood is low. I always default to ask. We should always ask. We don't know. But our hiring manager is going to take time out of their schedule to meet with you and create a role for you. The percentages are not in your favor. Okay. You can ask, but I think it's a pretty big ask. But hey, in life, we got to ask, we got to get after it. But I think the likelihood is low, just in my opinion. Any tips on how to expedite the GCP interview process when things are going really slow? Okay, let's get into it. My first interview was in June. I had my last interview 3 weeks ago. Update from last week, the recruiter mentioned she's still collecting feedback and haven't heard since. They got to introduce some SLA into their recruitment process. LOL. Yeah, Robbie. It's insane. I can't understand the way that Google's hiring process, to me, just blows my mind. And again, I think anybody who's been in these lives, I'm an open book. Just the process was just overwhelming. At the end, I just wanted to go. I couldn't handle all the process, all the steps, all the levels, all the checks and balances, the lack of getting interview feedback in. Like, it was brutal. They need to blow it up and start over. And I just don't think anybody's really had the courage to come in and say, we need to redo everything. And that's what they need to do. And also, they're a technology company, so they should be automating. Like all this should be automated. Like Google at this point doesn't really even need recruiters. Maybe sourcers, maybe one recruiter for many more candidates that's just doing follow up, or a follow up specialist, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this is crazy. Just continue to stay in touch. And the biggest thing is, we just want to continue to communicate with positivity. No spikes in communication. We want them to work for us, and the more gracious and kind we are, the more likely they are to help us. Okay, keep us updated. Sorry to hear that that's what's happening. Just FYI, level and experience. I now value the job content, day-to-day activities, and work over level and cash. Also, although I have 20 plus years of experience, I recently switched to React. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's something that you can highlight with your referrer. Like, if the role requires React, you could just say, "Hey, look, I'm new to React. I have some years of experience, but I really want to get in there." Just because, but Liz, the biggest thing to keep in mind is just because you don't care about level and cash, it doesn't mean that they don't care. Meaning that they don't really like putting senior people in more junior level roles. They say you're overqualified. That's just a thing. Okay. I'm not here to stop you, especially if you got to refer, like get after it, okay? And obviously keep us posted. Hey, Jeff, how are you? Thanks for doing this video. So how I asked the recruiter about a pay rate that how much can increase. Well, I don't want you asking the recruiter about pay too early on, but I would need to know a little bit more about the circumstances. Like, tell us more. Is it full-time? Is it a contract? Are you going through a recruiter at a corporation? Are you going through a headhunter, an external agency recruiter? Tell us a little bit more, and maybe I can be a little more helpful. Hey, Jeff, the Google recruiter informed me that I will have 2 stages of 4 interviews, 2 interviews per stage, RRK, system design, RRK, and GNL, okay? I'm curious about GCA not mentioned explicitly. Will these be a part of the 4 interviews? Interesting. That may have been a slip up on their end. Usually GCA is part of the process. Now, for more technical roles, it can be more technical facing and no GCA interview. I would just double up and ask the recruiter, "Hey, I'm surprised to not see a GCA interview in here. Is that not part of the process?" And you can send that via email, because we can always check with them. I think that's a very fair question, but interesting. Jeff, there's a big controversy about what information to put on the resume. Is it better to put our day-to-day or put the impact that we had on the job? Nicholas, this is a fantastic question, and I have your answer. Both. And here is why. Now, again, what I don't try to do with my resume advice is that I get upset when I see resume coaches, resume writers, resume articles, videos that say it needs to be a certain way. There's just a few things to keep in mind. And the biggest thing is, remember, when you're thinking about your resume, think about your audience. Who is reviewing your resume? And typically it's a recruiter or hiring manager, and they have limited time. So knowing they have limited time, I love a bulleted summary at the top. And then in your experience, I like a mix of day-to-day and accomplishments. Now, day-to-day is so critical for the applicant tracking system. Why? Because our day-to-day has probably more likely relevant keywords. So if you're not putting the day-to-day, you're missing the keywords. You're missing the keywords in your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. So anybody who's telling you not to put the day-to-day doesn't understand how the systems actually work. And so when recruiters search on LinkedIn or it hits the ATS, you have to have that day-to-day stuff to hit on the keywords so that you will get a reach out. Okay, so both. So probably a few bullets with the day-to-day, a few bullets with the accomplishments, but it doesn't have to be that rigid. I hope that helps. Great question. I have the option of domain expertise interview in lieu of a system design. EM, so okay, EM, engagement manager L6 for GCP. Can you expand on these interviews and what should be considered before signing up for one? An EM, oh, sorry. an engineering manager for GCP, because yeah, an engagement manager wouldn't have a system design interview. So this is an engineering manager. If you're going into, I mean, if you did a system design interview, it's going to be large scale system design, because at an L6, they want to see scope and scale, right? If you go in for a domain expertise, this could be and would likely be a mix of technical, behavioral, and hypothetical questions. Thomas, maybe if you tell us a little bit more I can about your domain expertise, that can be helpful. And if you are in La Jolla, I'm just to the south of you in PB. What are some effective strategies for handling tough or unexpected interview questions? Breathe. And I know we already talked about this, but it doesn't have to be that audible, but deep breaths. When we breathe, it reduces anxiety, and like all the data in science is going to back this up, right? Just we need to use our breath to calm us down. You shouldn't have, now tough questions, of course, but unexpected, expect the unexpected, and then you'll be prepared for it. And one of the best ways to handle unexpected questions, on the behavioral side, if you get an unexpected question and you don't really have an example, then basically all you're going to do is you're going to say, you know, I think the core function of this question is conflict. I have a conflict example, but I don't believe it exactly answers your question. Is it okay if I use that example? And then you can give more context. Now, if it's a hypothetical question, it's unexpected. Wear the hat of the role. Solve like you're in the role you're interviewing for, and then you change the unexpected to your advantage because you're actually solving like you're in the role. I hope that helps. Like if the recruiter is asking how much money I will need. Yes, but that really depends on who the recruiter is, right? So like if it's an agency recruiter, like an external recruiter to the organization, they're not going to let up on that. They need to know, because they're not going to put you in the process if they can't pay you the money. Now, if it's a corporate recruiter, an internal recruiter, I would just tell them, hey, I'm just looking to understand more about the role, the position, and then you can really fight for that comp you want at the end. I hope that helps. Again, let me know if you can provide a little more info. Hi from Nigeria. Joy, this is like awesome. We have such a good audience from so many different places. I'm just scrolling down to see. Let us know what happened. Did you use that email from last week? And this is the candidate-interview-feedback, or it's something like at google.com. It's something like that. Again, my brain, I don't know why I cannot attach that email address. I just need to say it 100 times so it locks in. But Joy, let us know if that worked for you and if you got an update. The creator and I, Corey, I don't know what happened here. I don't know why we lost. I hope you're still here. I lost, I'll come into this 2 of 2, but the 1 of 2 did not show up. The creator and I actually chatted briefly on LinkedIn, really intrigued by the platform. Like you said, will be a huge director in automation, but a huge win for candidates and transparency. So 1 of 1 dropped off. Tell me the name of the tool, and why my brain can't think. I can picture the person who runs the business. I'm forgetting their name. This is just, my brain. I don't know. I can't think through it right now. But if I come up with it, I will. But let us know 1 of 1. Okay, so Joseph, I'm just going back before. So L3, L4 decision, right? So let's come into this comment here. This is for a TAM role. Okay, so again, I'm going to roll back up here for a second. So L3, L4 decision. So here's the thing. With G&L interviews, okay, they're the same. They're the same across the board, okay? So if you're going for X role or Y role or Z role, they could be done by anybody. Same questions. It's a mix of behavioral and hypothetical questions. The questions you get depend on your interviewer. If I was interviewing you when I was at Google for a G&L interview, it didn't exist then. It was a Googliness and leadership interviews were separate. But if I was going to ask you only open-ended hypothetical questions. I did not ask behavioral questions in interviews. That was just my style. And this is one of the misconceptions that I handled in yesterday's video. There's this idea that the GCA interview is the only interview where you will be asked hypothetical questions, but the reality is you're likely to be asked them in every interview. So you've got to be ready for the hypothetical side and the behavioral side, okay? Prep for both. And again, get after it, practice it. They are hiring a lot of TAMs, right? So they've been hiring a lot of TAMs even through the freeze. This has been probably the #1 GCP role that they've continued to hire for. So get after it, crush it, and let me know if you need anything else. Also, what's a good anchor cash? Also, what is a good anchor plus cash comp plus equity for an L6? And again, I'm assuming Eng manager. It's always helpful. If you've been on these lives before, I'm terrible with abbreviations now. I know it's an engagement manager or Eng manager is EM, but I just want to clarify. L6, EM, Durham. I mean, engineering managers, even in Durham, like you should definitely be at a $500,000 plus. I mean, I might be anchoring into the sevens. High sevens, something like you got to go big. Remember, the big thing with anchoring at Google is like they're not going to say beat it because you go in with a huge number, right? I had an L7 TPM at Google ask me for $2 million a year. I didn't freak out. I just said, hey, I don't think I'm going to get there, but let me see what I can do. And so you can always go high. Like, what is the cash component going to be? The cash will be into the twos for sure. 20% target bonus, and then just make up that equity to get 500K plus, right? And obviously you can use levels.fyi for this. The biggest thing is that you go big with the anchor, go a couple 100K over for an engineering manager, and then utilize that as your strategy. Obviously I'm here to help with negotiations, but that's kind of my baseline of what I would think is reasonable. Hey, Jeff, what's the best way to get a recruiter interested in my resume if I'm outside the US? Candidly, it's just very, very hard to get recruiters to be interested. So like if we're talking networking strategy, my strong recommendation is to try and network with hiring managers and remember the give first strategy. We're not asking them for anything. We are giving them first. So if you're reaching out to recruiters in the US and saying, here's my resume, find me a job, or I came across this job, here's my resume, that's just the message that they get from every single person. So it's just very, very unlikely that they're going to help you. So if you can get referred in, if you can network in, maybe it might just be a better path to apply, even though everybody knows I don't love that strategy. But it's going to be challenging. It's just, you have to imagine how many resumes and how many reach outs these recruiters get. I just don't think recruiters are the best target audience to get into companies, as crazy as that might sound. Hey, Nicholas. Perfect. Thank you. When you come to Buenos Aires, let me know and I'll invite you to a barbecue. Sounds amazing. It is 100% on my bucket list to make it back. I was there in 2018, got to spend a couple weeks there, stayed in San Telmo, and like it was just blew my mind. So I got to get back really, really soon. And I want to visit the other parts of Argentina, just all the beautiful nature, the falls and everything. I want to get to everything, Patagonia and all that good stuff. So definitely on my bucket list for sure. I just completed 3 technical and 1 G&L interviews. Now I'll wait and we'll see what happens next. Yes, and if you haven't heard back in 5 business days, reach out, gracious, kind, and then of course, once you find out that you crushed it, get that level confirmed, anchor high, and negotiate like crazy. Yep, engineering manager. Yeah, if you're going system design, there's no way it's not an engineering manager for sure. How to negotiate in the compensation discussion. Well, you come in with an anchor, and then if you get any, if they combat what you're saying or anything, you're just really gracious and kind and just say, hey, Really appreciate if you'd advocate for me. And so I think the biggest thing to remember in compensation discussions is coming in with a high anchor is really valuable to the extent that we know that that company negotiates. Some companies will rescind offers because you negotiate. As crazy as that is, some first time you come in, you negotiate, and they say, hey, we want you to want to work here, not for the money. And then they like remove the offer. So you have to know what that company's negotiation philosophy is. You won't always know. So sometimes you need to ask. But my number one is I come in and I anchor high, but throughout I am gracious and kind. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And you are asking for your point of contact to be your advocate or partner. And then you're looking to negotiate multiple times and go in with a plan to push back when they push back. Jeff, thanks for all you do. In your experience, how total compensation negotiation changes when dealing with startups? What are your recommendations about what to explore? So with most startups, there's really two compensation pieces that we're looking at in terms of real money. We're looking at a base, which is almost always higher than any public company. Startup bases should be higher. And then sometimes a bonus. If you're going to get a bonus at a startup, you got to get some historical data there. If they say, hey, it pays around 10%, well, what is it paid over the last 3 years historically for this role, or over the last 2 years historically for this role, depending on how long they've been around? Because the bonuses can have a lot of ambiguity at startups. Then there's our funny money, okay? There's the equity. So like, what are they giving us? Options, strike price, etc. Like, what does the equity look like? And just remember, that's not real money. Okay, there's no guarantees that you ever see a dollar from that money, no matter what they say. So with startups, if they're going to throw a bunch of equity and shares and options at you, just understand what is the viability. Now, if you really believe in this organization, then sure, it's something to consider. And then what stage of the startup is it in? Some startups have equity that's sellable on the secondary market because they're close enough to IPO. So that's something else to consider. Lots to consider, Ricardo. So let me know if you have more questions. So strange that first message dropped off. Apologies. Tools like this are quite exciting. Corey, what's the tool? Tell us the tool, because oh my goodness, why can't my brain think of the other one? When I think of it or when I find it, I'll put it in the YouTube comment. So anything I kind of miss, I'll just, once the lives on YouTube stay up. So I'll just put it in the comment section if there's anything that I miss or forget or want to follow up on. Okay, Joseph, if one of your, oh, here we go. My recruiter is Randstad supporting Google and mentioned a range. Should I still negotiate? 100%. So if they came in and they say, hey, there's a contract role, we can pay you up to 50, say, you know, I'm really looking, and again, you don't have to use this language, but contract roles are negotiable. So let's just talk a little bit about what it looks like on the back end. Google needs to fill a role through Randstad. Randstad wants to pay 50 because Google's going to pay Randstad $100 an hour. They're looking for 100% markup. That is the agency goal, typically, is to get 100% markup on a contract rate. But within that, for the ideal candidate, they'll have flexibility because it's worth it to them to get an 80% markup as opposed to not hiring you at all. So if they're going to pay 50 and you want to get 60, for example, and say, look, in order to move forward, I'm looking to earn 60 an hour for this role. Is that, is that doable? Like, we got to have a little bit different language with recruiters, but you want to stay a little stern, but you also don't want to give up the opportunity. So you just have to navigate that really carefully. But contract rates are negotiable because you're just taking a cut. You're taking a percentage away from Randstad. Their set fee is with Google. So you're just taking a little bit away from them, but they always have flexibility. And when they say they don't, they're full of it, quite honestly. Okay, Joy, yes, sent the email. I got a response immediately that they would get back to me. Okay, so Joy used Joy, maybe you can tell us the email address because I'm not going to pull it up at the moment, but it's like Tell us the email address if you can, just so anybody else here can use it. But this is when people don't hear back. So what's the second part here? Is it normal for a recruiter to tell you the salary range for the role is not open for negotiation? Well, the salary range, if it's a range, the salary range is not really negotiable. If you're trying to get outside of that salary range, yeah, it's not going to happen, right? But the overall offer is negotiable. And the biggest thing we negotiate is on equity. If you're coming in the door at Google and you are getting an offer, it's like their intro offer and it feels really low. It's likely that you can double the equity, sometimes triple the equity. And again, a lot of that depends, but negotiate heavily on equity and sign on. But the base ranges are really tight. And oftentimes, if we're going to a company like Google, we may be making less base, but your total comp will likely really out earn your current role. They are a total compensation company, not a base salary company. I hope that helps. How they do that pointing system in the interviews? How hiring committee make their decisions? The first question I don't understand. But the second question, hiring committee is looking at your resume and your background. They're looking at your interview feedback, and they're trying to assess whether your resume, your interview feedback, any internal references, and the hiring manager's statement of support all support hiring you at X level. And they're tough, right? They're an extra barrier, an extra bar. That's why getting into Google can be so tricky and challenging. But they're looking at all those items when making their decisions. I can't stand these fake chats you have with people at work, just unnecessary inquiries into personal life, and it's just tiring. Okay. I mean, yeah, sometimes interacting with others can be taxing or tiring, right? And that can also be personality type driven. For people who are more introverted, it takes more energy to have these conversations. People like me sometimes get more energy off of conversations because I'm highly extroverted, right? So it depends. Now, showing real care for others and having these conversations is important. But if you were to see me, like I'm in a co-working space and then I have my own private office in a co-working space, I do engage with people in my space, but I do it very briefly. And I think people who have been around long enough know that I'm not going to engage with them for typically more than 30 seconds to a minute. I'm busy. I want to get back to my work. I like working. And so I'm not going to engage with you for long periods of time. So set your boundaries on how long you'll spend communicating with them. And maybe that will be an effective strategy. So they just kind of understand you're willing to have the niceties, but you don't want to hang out and hear about their kid's birthday party for 20 minutes, right? I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff from India. Okay, awesome. I recently applied for a PGM DA role at Google through a referral, but my application got rejected. Should I ask for feedback from the hiring manager? No, they're not going to give you feedback. You're not going to get feedback. Okay, so here's the good news, Mom. The good news is that you have a refer. Try again. But is that hiring manager going to come and give you feedback? It's just highly unlikely. Okay. When you don't have solid examples to answer hypothetical situation, behavioral questions, well, is it okay to give my general philosophy, like how I would deal with that situation? Okay, so we got to split this up a little bit. So hypothetical questions are posing something for you to solve for, problem solve for. So they're going to put you in a scenario. What would you do in X scenario? I want you to imagine you're in Y scenario. How would you deal with Z scenario? Then you're going to have to give a proposed solution. Now, general philosophy, no. You are going to solve hypothetical questions like you're in the role. It's not general, it's specific. This is where most people fail with hypothetical questions, okay? Now, behavioral questions are going to be past experience driven. Let me know if you have more questions. Okay, Corey, I still don't know what the company is. Can you tell us the company? I checked the internet, has very few data for yearly comp for Google Cloud TAM in Canada, and it's 111K a year USD for L3 and 170K USD for L5. May I know a good anchor for L3 and L4 breakdown? So TAM in Canada is a big market. I'm assuming Toronto. Yep. Okay. Yep. Just wanted to confirm that. Almost all tech in Canada is Toronto. There's a little bit in Vancouver. Vancouver should really pop a little bit more, in my opinion, because it's kind of along the West Coast. Yeah. So remember, these numbers that you're seeing are base salary numbers. So total comp is going to be better. Total comp is going to be better because you're going to get that equity component. It's going to go into the 200s. Now, L3, probably not, but L4 should get into the 2s, and then L5, you'll start moving into more like the mid 2s for Toronto. Toronto, it's tricky because it's a very expensive market. Doesn't always pay amazing for tech. It pays pretty good. And then TAM roles are not the best paying roles at Google. They make about 70% of what like a software engineer would make. So if you look at the software engineer data times what it would be at that role, think you'll earn about 70% of what that is. Hey, Jeff, what if I have some objections about my recruiter feedback or interviewer feedback? Do you think I can discuss their feedback? You can always give, yes, you can always give them feedback. Really make sure you are watching your pitch and tone, okay? Watch your pitch and tone. It's going to be very, very critical that you're gracious, kind, and you want to provide some insights, because when you're providing feedback, it has to be delivered in a kind manner, okay? Let me know if you have more questions. Okay, this is strange. Every message that includes the company gets dropped off. I've sent the message multiple times. So strange. The tool is Canada.FYI. Oh, I haven't seen that. No, I haven't seen that one. And I know the other one is on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't get it. My brain won't do it. Maybe it's because it's interpreting Canada.FYI as a link when I put it together. Yeah, probably. It's probably trying to block links, would be my best guess. Questions to ask at the end of a G&L round. I've asked about Google's first principle, focus on the user, and the rest will follow. How it relates to this team I'm interviewing with. I don't know, because I don't personally know the team. I have a specific philosophy when asking questions at the end of the interview. Not everybody likes it, but I know it works. At the end of the interview, I ask about the person. I say, what do you love about the company? What do you love about your job? Etc. Like, what's the coolest thing you're working on right now? If you can share it with me. What do you love? What's cool? What's awesome? What's great? Then what happens? They think you're great at the end because you're talking about all these positive things. Don't think it works? That's okay. Not everybody likes that strategy, but I can guarantee if you're using words like love, great, awesome, fantastic, they hop off the video and the interview and they're like, I really like that candidate because they were talking about themselves and they were talking about positive things. I do not like challenging questions at the end of the interview. It can pull your interviewer down. I like to keep it light and fluffy. Again, does that strategy work 100% of the time? Probably not. Does it work 90% of the time? Probably. Okay, we're at an hour and 13 minutes, hour and 14 minutes in. We've run out of questions. As additional questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. I'm just going to roll naturally into a wrap up. And then, of course, any additional questions I'm happy to answer. My name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one interview, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and we have an interview mastery course. The AI practice interview tool will be out this year. It will be out for free in a beta version to get user feedback. it is going to be a game changer for this community, for this audience, for anybody who wants to practice their questions. Why? Because it's going to push you to fix specific parts of your answer. No other practice interview tool is doing that. They're giving you an overall general critique. They're not actually having you rework parts of your answer to get better real time. That's what my product is going to do. I'm super, super pumped about it. Stay tuned. I'm obviously going to be doing a massive push to get people engaged and involved in using the tool. Tons of free resources. Our Slack community has 4,000 members. It's free. I pop in there a few times a week and answer questions. The community also will answer questions for each other. We have a peer practice interview tool where people are practicing interviews with each other for free, and the tool is free. I have 9 other free resources. Practice putting together your behavioral answers, your hypothetical answers. I have tools for that. I have a cheat sheet for that. I have all sorts of free resources. Obviously, almost everything I do is for free. I go live 10 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday and new original content every Monday. I've really been wanting to engage in a good short strategy. I've been delaying on that a little bit, but I think I will push that relatively soon. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, please consider subscribing. I will be back next week at 10 a.m. And thank you everybody for being here. I really, really appreciate it.